Hello and welcome to another MSC Performance podcast, a special that is called 2 Max, 1 Mic, and we are joined by a special guest today, Mr. Mark Colson.
Our fearless leader.
How are you?
Very well, thank you, Max. Thank you, thank you for having me. Yes. It's an honour to be here. Really glad to be back, and just hoping that I can, provide a little bit of je ne sais quoi for
exactly.
Listeners.
Bit of flavour.
I mean, we've got for the millions of listeners who will be listening.
I'm nervous.
I know. I think we have got a few topics to talk about, but please just stay with us, because I think if you listen to mine and Max's previous one, we do segue quite a lot. So just stick with us if you are listening and you haven't turned off by now. If you can see, we've all got our huge coffee cups. So should we have a cheers?
Cheers.
Cheers, boys. Cheers. Let's have a good old podcast. So,
Buffalo. Before
we talk about anything serious and important, I've got a topic I want to talk about. So me and you, Mark, the day before, we had a nice little venture, didn't we, to Costco?
We did. That's correct.
I want to have a little chat about that experience. What was your first experience like? Because Matt, you've been to a Costco before, haven't you?
It meant many years ago, many moons ago, I've been.
I would say one of the best places I've ever been to in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I would put it out there.
It's an absolute experience. I mean, Sonia made me sign up to it over a year ago.
Yeah.
We hadn't been once. So we bought a membership just over a year ago. I mean, we got there the other day and they were like, your membership's expired. And I was like, oh, okay.
Haven't been once.
We hadn't been once. And went in there, and it was, absolute mind-boggling experience.
I mean,
I was discombobulated the moment I walked in. It was
that first half an hour was intense, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'll paint the picture for you. Okay, we walked in with our trolley, and we just went, "Oh my god, it's huge!" And have you been to the one in Birmingham?
Yeah.
There's that little section with all the tellies and the instruments. I think we spent about an hour there.
Yeah, we went there for toilet paper, water, and blue roll, and nearly came back with a TV, a DJ set,
karaoke machine,
and a beard trimmer.
I did get a beard trimmer because I needed that. So hopefully the accountant doesn't look too hard at the receipt there. Yeah, little beard trimmer, which
it's an experience and a half, though, isn't it?
Oh wow! I mean, what an experience! We played some Mortal Kombat as well on the arcade machine. After about 3 hours, we eventually got round to buying toilet paper and water.
Stuff for the gym, which was the most important.
Is that a hint to come as to what's going to be in place for members soon? We're going to have MSC Games Arcade, Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, do you know what?
Time Crisis 3.
Yeah, I think we very, very nearly came back with a couple of bits, didn't we?
But we were close. I think
But I think yes is the answer. I think we will go down that road. I'd love to have like a game section where, we've got our basketball, hoop back up. We've got, maybe some, a couple of arcades, a PS1. What PlayStation's out now?
PS are we on? What PS5 we're on?
All right. PS1.
Don't forget
PS1 with FIFA 2000. The golf net. Table. So there was a 4-in-1 pool table. So it's pool table, table tennis, air hockey, and I just thought like that would be incredible if we can get above the office, above the kitchen, that sort of that upstairs bit. We can get that sorted out.
Yeah,
and then we could have like a game section up there. With some sofas, some coffee. I think things like that would be really, really cool. I think at the moment we've probably still got some other work-ons that we need to do.
It's close though. It's close.
Exactly. I think over the next, let's say year, 18 months, I think the priority is still, 1 or 2 more bits of kit we want to get. There's obviously work we can do and we want to do in the changing rooms and the toilets and the entrance, etc. I think at the moment I would feel a little bit guilty spending the budget on Mortal Kombat arcade machine.
Mate,
whilst we've got those other things to improve, but all in good time. Yeah, that will happen. I mean, we what are we, 7? Just over 7 years 70. Old. Maybe the 10th. I'd like to get it done sooner than that. But maybe the 10th birthday is a treat where we have a bit of budget aside and we buy games area for the members. I think that'd be really cool. I'd like a sauna as well.
A little sauna, I think on that, that's a very good topic.
But these are things to work towards, and I think we've got other priorities at the moment.
Yeah,
I'd like to just throw my 2 cents in there, throw my hat in the ring.
Go on,
if there's a comment I could bring in. Anyone that listened to the last 2 Max One Mic podcasts,
yes,
might have honed in the fact that I am a big, lifelong fan of the worldwide pool phenomenon, Earl the Pearl Strickland. Don't know if you picked up on that.
Earl the
Pearl Strickland, one of the most famous American pool players of all time. And I would really have an issue with a 4-in-1 pool table. As a purist,
we had this discussion in there. It was a good 10-minute discussion. Yeah. So it was on its side, and we were like, "Is this full size?"
It's
no,
not.
we could never get it.
No, I agree.
I mean, American pool every day of the week. You've got to have a full size table. There's nothing that irritates him more than like one of those little ones with the green snooker felt. Yeah. You've got little twigs for cues, and it's in a room that's too small to really get your backswing going.
Yeah.
So you really got to be able to bridge and position yourself. I mean, pub sports are a real thing. They deserve the respect that they are.
As a sensational pool player myself, I do agree, and I think if we can go down that route, like full size pool table, like it's so easy to put a darts board up there as well.
Not to brag, but I actually used to have my own pool cue.
So did I.
I did. Mine was signed by Bonnie O'Sullivan.
Well,
really?
Yeah, mine was signed by Bonnie O'Sullivan.
You got a pool cue signed by a snooker player?
Yeah, but it was one of the generic ones. It was really, honestly, it was screw half and half. Screw it together.
There's no such thing as.
I had exactly the same snooker. Yeah, mine was signed by Jimmy White, but
mine was the choice. Mine was between O'Sullivan.
Mine was a Riley's one. You sort of screw it up, put it a little seat. I went through a period of like a year or two at college of getting into a bit of snooker. Yeah.
Did you go to pool? I used to go with my dad to pool, like pool halls with my little cue, like walking with the little case.
Yeah.
In there, that'd be terrible.
My first 2 years of uni. The amount of time I spent in Riley's, cheap pints, cheap pool cues, great felt. What a time to be alive.
I know. It is
24 hours.
So MSC snooker hall, pool hall is in the works.
In the works. I think again to stress, the point again. I think it's important that we, I think there's work that could be done in the entrance, the change rooms, etc.
There's bigger fish to fry.
There's bigger fish to fry right now, but it will happen. It's something I'm very keen. I want to create that almost like it's a little bit hipster, but that Google sort of setup, where we've got like pods and sleeping pods. That might be too far, but. That might be too far.
On the show, just pods and hammocks.
I reckon that will go down well with the powerlifters, though.
They need a bit of rest, don't they?
A couple of hours between sets.
Yeah.
Have a quick nap.
I've got a couple of hammocks at home, and I think they're invaluable. Yeah. And I think it's again, these are things that we can work towards.
Yeah.
I want to make it MSC a safe and welcoming environment. But I think I'm a big fan of that. Like from a staffing point of view as well, like yourself, you run 2 big strongman classes today. I just think a 10-minute blast on Mortal Kombat or a 10-minute snooze in the hammer.
Game of killer on pool.
Yeah, quick game of pool. But because I trust that the vision of where we want to take MSC and the passion is there from everybody. So it's not like a case of, or I hope it's not a case of, that kind of micromanaging and like, right, you've got to do this or this or that. Like, I trust the team enough to do those couple of Metcons, and then I know it's going to be a 5-10 minute blast of pool or more
skill-based stuff, isn't it? It's skill-based stuff. It's still skill. It's still within
exactly. Karaoke, whatever it is.
Of course. Imagine blasting a bit of who's your point,
and then you're back into it.
Johnny Cash
in between the Metcon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
I think on that topic, Mark and Max, I think it's very good. Like, to bring it back, hone it in a little bit. So we sent out a feedback form quite recently, didn't we? And we got a lot of good, honest feedback that we are going to take forward, and we really respect a lot of the members actually putting through their opinions on how we can improve MSC, and we're really going to try and act upon a lot of, like, the majority of things put forward as soon as possible, aren't we? Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of feedback about pool halls and Mortal Kombat.
But not everyone knows that that's what they need.
I think now people are going to go back and refill in the feedback forms and put pool hall, Mortal Kombat, table tennis, karaoke, DJ set. So I think we've got that sleeping pods. We've got that to really look forward to, haven't we?
Yeah. But as you say, in a much more serious note, it was actually quite nice. It was quite nice to read a lot of those replies and see that, we sell ourselves as a brand on, a place that offers great coaching, trying to build this kind of this third space environment, so to speak, outside of the place of work and the home, somewhere where people can go and have a good community, have a good fun, and obviously get a very high standard of coaching as well. And see that come back almost universally across the board as like classes are great, coaching's great. We know there's areas to work on, and as we said, that kind of comes down to a lot of the kind of the facilities, making sure we maintain the kit, making sure the changing rooms and toilets are up to spec, which are obviously in the works. But it was really, really nice to see that actually some of the feedback where we strive to be very good at what we do, that's actually exactly what the members are saying, which is great.
Yeah, we welcome as much feedback as possible, don't we? Like, the more the better, like the more honest feedback we get, the more we can then act upon it. So yeah, I just thought I'd put it out there and say thank you for the members for actually replying to it all and actually giving us good, honest feedback. Right, onto a serious topic now. Okay, we've had a chat about pool. So
was that not serious?
It was a little bit serious. We will go to pool. We will get a pool table. But so we wanted to have a little chat about hypertrophy and stuff, didn't we? And I think what works well with hypertrophy is you're training at the moment quite hard, aren't you? With regards to, you've got a wedding to get ready for.
I've got a wedding to get ready for.
You want to maintain as much muscle mass. You want
a jersey.
You want to look as wham as possible. So why don't you talk me through the kind of training that you're doing currently to maximize hypertrophy or get yourself ready for that wedding shirt so your arms are looking wham? Because you're not doing any calves or legs at the moment, are you?
I actually did 4 sets of calves yesterday.
Wow.
4 sets of calves yesterday.
And cycling.
Cycling as well, yeah. They're not growing yet, but you just got to keep, as Alan Titchmarsh would say, just keep putting in the groundwork.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep grafting, and just hope that the seeds grow.
So come on, talk us through what kind of training you're currently embarking on.
In theory, it's a 5-day-a-week split. In theory, life gets in the way. So if those 5 sessions happen over 8 days, if those 5 sessions happen over 9 days, fine. Like I said, I'm not stressing too much over that. Not quite like body part split, but upper lower. The lower body sessions are pretty minging, so I'm cutting those down a little bit. But I think that with hypertrophy, people just assume that it's anything in like the 8 to 12 rep range, and that's kind of where you grow muscle. 1 to 6 is strength. 7 apparently does nothing. And then as the old 90s trainers might say, 12 to 20, you're toning and shaping, which is obviously just not correct. So I think with hypertrophy, like I said, I think as long as where people stress most about the rep ranges, the biggest thing to me is that, you're picking exercises appropriately and you're executing them in the right way, as opposed to just picking a rep range. A lot of the research now says if you're training hard enough, anywhere from like 30 to 100% your 1 rep max is effective for hypertrophy. Now there's obviously a lot of nuance within that, but it's the biggest thing for me is exercise selection. So making sure you're in as much of a kind of stable base as possible, as much of a stable position as possible, and what you're doing isn't necessarily limited by skill. So what I mean by that is if you're trying to really grow your hamstrings, which is probably the prime example, you see a lot of people doing things like single leg RDLs, like single leg hip thrusts where they've got a barbell that's really unbalanced across their hips, that sort of thing. The more skill is a factor in the exercise that you're performing, the more you're limiting your ability to actually put tension and work through a muscle group. Because again, if you do a single leg RDL, at some point, you're going to start falling over and losing your balance before you can just start accumulating more reps or more weight. So I think more importantly than the rep range, which is what people always sweat over, do I do 8 to 12 or do I do it like 10 to 15? It's just pick an exercise that is almost no skill involved, something that you haven't really got to think about too much, and then work out ways that you can really maximize the range of motion on those exercises. So make sure that every single rep, you're really taking the time to move the target muscle through a really nice, like deep stretch, and then coming right the way up through the movement as well. I think that's a good point. So I'll often say a lot of the time
most of the people think when they're trying to obviously train for hypertrophy and put muscle mass on, all that kind of stuff, their first look is to put weight on and like on the bar, when actually I'm a big advocate for make that barbell or the dumbbell or the machine feel as heavy as possible before you even think about chucking any weight on. So if you control that eccentric part of the movement like as good as possible, you get good range of motion, all of that kind of stuff. Like I've seen you doing, like when you do your incline bench, you're a good 3-4 second on the way down. Big squeeze at the bottom, driver, and you're making that weight as hard as possible without even thinking about going up to the next dumbbells and putting more stress on your joints. So it's maximizing the weight that you're on first, and then you can look at putting the more weight on as the weeks go on.
And the way you think about it as well, like the biggest thing that's gonna, you know, if we assume that we're picking the right exercises, if we assume that we're executing them correctly as well. And again, this is just another area where we're in an environment where there's a massive amount of strength sports going on in this gym. You know, we've got great weightlifters, great power lifters. A lot of people do field sports, and then obviously people are really into the functional fitness. You know, high rocks are getting massive at the moment. But so there's always a huge focus on building strength and getting more and more weight on the bar, like you said. But a big thing, you know, the biggest trigger, in my opinion, you know, assuming, like we said, that you've got the right exercises, executing in the right way, the biggest trigger that's going to really build muscle over the long term is then making sure that you'll progressively increase your training volume. So whether it's more total tonnage, more sets, more reps and whatnot. And when you kind of do the maths or do the numbers of calculating training load, putting more weight on the bar is actually a pretty poor way of increasing the amount of work you're doing. So if you can bench 100 kilos for 10, you know, trying to push that 100 up to 102 or 105 as a percentage of the weight of the work done, it's actually a relatively small increase. Whereas if you go from doing over 4 weeks, if you go from doing 2 sets to 3 sets to 4 sets to 5 sets, you're massively increasing the amount of work you're doing without having to increase any weight on the bar. Or if you're sticking at 3 sets, trying to go from 10 up to 11 up to 12 reps, even that is a much smaller progression. But you know, it's a much more surefire way of making sure that you're accurately and effectively and consistently increasing training volume. So the weight on the bar can almost not change to some extent for 5-6 weeks at a time.
As long as you're increasing reps kind of thing every time.
It's
intensity, isn't it, as well? It's obviously you can be at a certain RIR, whatever, but as long as you're getting very, very close to failure, and it's like all your body knows is that mechanical tension, isn't it? So it's like if you're getting close to failure, but you'll see some people in the gym who do 4 or 5 sets of every movement, and they do 5-6 movements. That's how many sets that is in total. That's far too much, isn't it? If you just do 2 sets, what you kind of do 2 or 3 sets of something to absolute failure, 3-4 movements,
or close enough to failure.
That's all you need, isn't it? 3-4 movements. That's it.
And again, like you're probably hitting 2 or 3 muscle groups in a session. But like I say, if you're doing 2 or 3 movements, like whether you're talking about quads or hamstrings or chest or shoulders or back, realistically, to completely work all the different branches and all the different fibers in a muscle group, you don't really need more than 2 exercises. Sometimes you might do 3 exercises, depending on what it is.
The beauty of it is in the simplicity, isn't it? Like,
massively.
Can you imagine like actually explaining that to like a 18, 19-year-old who's like starting to come into the gym, and like how easy it actually is.
Well, what did you do at 18? So what kind of thing would you do at 18? This is a good example to try and explain, because I bet I was the same as you. So how would you train when you first got into the gym when you were 16, 17, 18? How would you train?
So I think probably started going to the gym when I was like 16, 17, but it was really irregular and obviously didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I was, I'd go in and target a couple of muscles. I'd do exercises that I liked. I quite like doing lowers, like even at that age, like, so, you know, it was real basic. I mean, there's no plan to it.
And would you do like a lot? It'd be like 4 sets of 8 to 12 or something.
Yeah, probably.
On every exercise.
I mean, it was that long ago, mate. I can barely remember.
That's only 3 years. 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Carry on back
saying how fairness, for me, I was actually never that interested in like bodybuilding or like building a massive physique. I was just mad into sport. So like, you know, for me, it was as soon as I started finding out about getting stronger, doing Olympic lifts, like plyometrics, stuff like that, that really took my interest, like at quite an early age compared to most people, I think. So like maybe it was only the first year or 2 where I was like going in and just doing like, 3 sets of 10 on a leg extension and then a like, you know, seated chest press or something like that. And that was so irregular anyway. But looking back, it probably would have been a good idea for me to do a bit more of that kind of, you know, that kind of just absolute simple, plain like bodybuilding stuff.
Useful for anyone.
Because like I was getting into all that other stuff, and you know, I just think like setting a bit of foundation, putting some muscle mass on at an earlier age would have been better. I was definitely chasing the intensity side of things as opposed to like just good structured volume, definitely overcomplicating things as well. So like intensity, speed, you know, plyo, stuff like that, without really building any sort of foundation. And you can get into that stuff like straight away when you start training, like, you know, the days of, you know, you've got to squat 3 times body weight before you can do a plyometric, you know, which was written about like back in the day, is gone. But I do think there's a balance there where like, just like I said, so we're talking about it now and it's so easy to do, just with structure, discipline, turning up to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. And like Max said, like 30% to 100% intensity doesn't really matter. I mean, just keep it on the lower scale, aim for, you know, tension, both in terms of mechanical tension, time under tension, gradually increasing over time, and range of motion as well. Like I think is just really, really key. You get a young athlete like that and just say like, just focus on the range of movement, gradually going to increase volume. Like the skill, you know, then by the time they're sort of 3, 4, 5 years into the training and they can do a full squat, they can do a full RDL, is invaluable, rather than chasing the weight, limiting the range of motion, and just like training hard for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean?
And it can all be based on individuals. So as you say, anyway, like there's a lot of studies out there, isn't there, that says, as you said, anywhere between 30 to 100% of your 1RM, as long as you're working that to failure, you're going to get hypertrophy. But it's all depending on the individual. So it's like, say I was someone who liked repping stuff out and I didn't mind going to 20, 30 reps. Happily, but it's like, I'm not someone who, well, I don't mind doing it. And I know you probably don't mind doing it, but some people might actually prefer being like 5 to 10 reps. Like I couldn't think of anything worse than doing 30 reps of the same movement. So it's all depending on the individual. Like bodybuilders, they quite like doing like drop sets,
10,
25
15,
reps.
20 reps.
Whereas other people who do want to sort of get heavy, kind of heavyish load, but they do prefer working in that like 5 to 10 rep range, that'd be better for them, wouldn't it really?
And I think having some sort of mix is probably optimal. I think Brad Schoenfeld comes about it like he's like the OG godfather of hypertrophy research. He comes at it quite an interesting way. He said, if you're someone who, you know, we think of periodization as S&C coach, or coming from like a
I was going to try and reckon I've got it. There we go.
Spillage is leakage, but he talks about it quite interesting. We think about periodization, we're talking about like a strength sport athlete or a field sport athlete. Buffalo. We think about it as, you know, you periodize as, you know, volume comes in pre-season and then you go into strength, and then like the power work or the max effort stuff is where you peak. Whereas he talks about really trying to optimize and get as much hypertrophy as possible. He almost starts off like a bodybuilder. He'd start off a training plan with a strength-based program, try and maximize the strength, so that when they then go into trying to maximize their volume, maximize their hypertrophy, they have a bigger strength base. They can perform more volume throughout that phase, and he almost flips periodization on his head. But yeah, what I was going to say with that is, in reality, a good hypertrophy program, if you just did sets of 1 and 5 all the time, you'd fry yourself out really quickly, and you probably wouldn't achieve that much volume in total. So although it does achieve it, and in the literature it's like they show that, you know, heavy training like that can be very good for hypertrophy. In reality, in application, like it's going to be very hard to train really heavy all year round and just do low reps and actually stick to that and effectively, consistently, like add reps and sets. Like I say, if you just said to someone like, keep lifting your 1 rep max until you can do it for sets of 5, like it would be great if you could do that, because everyone would just be like freaky strong. But it just ain't going to happen. So in reality, a good program, you're going to come in, do 1 or 2 lifts where you might be coming in and doing sets of 5 or sets of 6 and going heavy. Then as you go throughout the session, a lot of the time it's saying, right, now we're going to move into sets of 8 to 12. Now we're going to move into sets of 12 to 20. I think a good program really is going to be some sort of combination of all of those.
It's funny though, because like, as you were saying, if you could get to a 16, 17-year-old from an early age, like say you had me when I was 16, 17, I would train like that. I was a 1 RM every time. So I'd get into the gym with my pals, I'd do 1 rep max on my bench, I'd do 1 RM on my deadlift, 1 RM on my squat, and then 1 RM on my shoulder press. I do absolute max on
every day.
And I was working like, obviously you have that acclimatization where you do get really strong really quick, but then after so often you do plateau. And I was wondering like, why am I getting any stronger? And it's really hard to get into sort of that young age and say, don't worry about going too heavy. Actually, just
get reps.
Yeah. And it's quite hard, isn't it, to get into that age and tell them that and to let them understand, because all they want to do is they're in this gym environment, this new thing, and they just want to lift heavy.
But it's actually quite interesting having us here on the table, because all the three of us have all got clients who are at that sort of age at the moment. I've got a young lad that I coach who's 12.
Yeah.
You've got a young athlete who she 13, 14.
Yeah.
And then Mark, you've got the two girls, haven't you?
Yeah, 11 and 12 now. Yeah.
And it's the biggest thing, because obviously they're now, for all of us, I think we've always been coaching all those for at least a year, I'd imagine. I don't know, I've been coaching for a number of years, but like seeing the development at that sort of age when everything is coached properly, when it's programmed properly, compared to how I developed at that age and when I was just going and being an idiot in the gym for like 14, 15, doing rubbish. Like seeing how well those young athletes move and how fast they're developing. Mark, I think the two girls that you coach in particular, like they're crazy to watch.
Crazy.
But like seeing that sort of development and seeing the athletic capacity just develop from what is effectively like really, in our minds, very, very, very basic, really straightforward, just well organized and well executed training. It's incredible to see how a young athlete really, really responds to that and the potential you can get. Like if you start going to the gym at 20 and you think about the progression you get then in the 10 years to the age of 30, at best, like that's, but imagine just being at that kind of peak where you're already ridiculously well developed, ridiculously well trained, and you're hitting a really good peak by the time you hit 18, 19.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I mean, like
the leg up you get by the time you get to senior sports.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievably like exciting and just ridiculous to like just think where they will be when they're 16, 17, 18. And I think like, even having spoken to Mick numerous times, their dad, about it, like his big thing is like they do absolutely have got it. They've got it in them to go and be world beaters if whatever sport they do, if they want to. Like they do have that ability. They've got it. Like there's no doubt about it. But he said like that'd be amazing. But like the key thing is that like they get to 16, 18, and it's like they've got the confidence to go off to uni, go off to college, whatever, and they've had like by then 7 or 8 years of like good solid S&C, like they're strong, like they've got reps under the belt, they know what they're doing, they're confident in the gym, which is important. Like you just go into any environment and be like bang, I'm into it. And it's a part of their lifestyle. We talk about like to bring it back to a more basic level with older people, we talk about the hardest thing with getting into the gym is is building the consistency and like making it a part of your life. Now for me, for you guys, you don't even have to think about that. Like it's ingrained in that you don't start your week by thinking, oh geez, I should go to the gym, how am I going to fit around that? And that's the same for like most people that come to MSC. I would say they're not thinking like that. It's like, well, how do I plan my week around the gym? Like I'm going to the gym 3 times this week. It's non-negotiable. And I think with people who struggle, their mindset is the other way around. It's like, how do I fit in? Oh, I just haven't got time. Whereas for us, it's non-negotiable. And I think for these girls growing up, that's going to just, the best thing about all this is that's going to be a non-negotiable for them. They get to 18, 20, 25, 30, and it's just a part of their life. Like it's kind of like, it's just ingrained into them that is part of the daily routine, as it is brushing the teeth in the morning, as it is like eating, as it is going to school or doing the job. Yeah, but it is. It's like it's exactly. So it's and that's probably the most exciting thing. It's just to like imagine them at 18, 20, 25.
You're setting them up to be healthy people, for life, exactly. And have like healthy, like from a mental perspective as well. Like
they don't need the discipline because it's just going to be there. It's going to be normal for them.
And I think more so for for the girls that you coach, you know, I can speak because I see this in person, whereas I can't really speak to my client or Max's. What I think is incredible for those two in particular as well, having both their parents being members of MSC, while you're coaching them, they watch their mum and dad train as well.
Exactly.
And like those two train hard as well.
What is the girls always say to me whenever he's talking or like not training? They always go, "Come on, you need to come on."
It's
talking.
It's hilarious. Well, he was in here yesterday whilst the girls were training. So he come in, dropped them off, and he came and sat here. He's talking to Steve. I could see Amy's just turned 11. She's getting a bit agitated during her little rest period. I was like, are you right? And she's shaking her head saying, he's not training. He's not training. I can hear him from here. I swear on my life, this is what she was saying. Because we were on the platforms and Mick's in the office and he's got a voice that travels.
Yeah.
She was shaking and like she's gritting her teeth and she was upset. She was really upset. I said, go and have a word. Go and have a word. I kind of followed in behind her. And she's opened the door and she's like, Michael, all you're doing is talking. We're not here to talk. We're here to train. I'm not even kidding. That was it. And I'm like, the absolute like determination of this 11-year-old is mental. And like Mick's a real hard trainer himself. Yeah, he's also a lovely bloke. So he comes in for a chat. He comes in for a chat sometimes, and you know, over the amount he's trained over the years, he's probably earned that. Yeah. But not according to the girls. They were absolutely fuming, and Louise's mum was late yesterday as well.
They must have had a field day.
7 minutes late, and they were furious.
I bet what helps with Mick,
you're not here to talk, you're here to train. That's what they say to Mick. Yeah,
late.
Poor Mick just drops his head and like goes back to do his set. Absolutely rinsing. It's incredible.
The thing is, it was like he never has an easy session. Like he always pushed himself.
He trains hard
in the classes in particular. Like great, but
he's a monster.
You see him. Whether it's conscious or not, like I just love it as a parenting thing. Like you almost see him take it up a notch again when they're here, as if he's like, I can't show them that I'm slacking. Well, other than yesterday, obviously, he's sitting there having a chin wag. But you can see him again, whether it's constantly or not. Like he leads by example. Yeah. He leads from the front. Yeah. As they say, when they're in, you can really see him flog himself.
Yeah. What helps is that they obviously Mick and Louise are always ingrained. Like, they make sure that the girls are enjoying it and that they are enjoying training. And I think that you've ingrained that enjoyment into them. It makes it so much better that they come in and they enjoy themselves.
That's part of the consistency thing. You know, talk about how, you know, whether you're looking for strength, hypertrophy, losing weight, getting bigger, whatever it is. You know, it's about consistent discipline, consistency, and the discipline brings about the consistency, but the discipline comes from enjoying yourself, and actually enjoying what you do. I think, you know, as humans, I think if I throw you into you're not the best example, but like if I throw someone into a 6-week boot camp and it's like, you know, get down and give me 10, 100 burpees, etc. Some people obviously love that, but a lot of people won't enjoy that. And it's punishment. It's punishment. And exercise and training shouldn't be punishment. Like we do work hard, but it has to be enjoyable, you know. And if you enjoy a bit more, you know, powerlifting, your Olympic lifting, a bit more sort of hybrid and work around, you know, whatever it is, like find something you enjoy and stick with it. And you have to make training enjoyable. And that's the key thing for these girls at the moment as well, is that they're enjoying it. That's the key. Because let's be honest, I'm not doing anything that's rocket science with them. It's, you know, they're unbelievably, you know, talented athletes, great girls, and genetically brilliant. It's, you know, about enjoying it and like making it fun for them, so they want to come back, they're enjoying it, you know. When we do train seriously at times and going through technical stuff, it's like they're tuned in, they're listening. But, you know, we also do, you know, we make it fun. You know, we're doing some Olympic lifts at the moment, and it's a constant like, do you enjoy doing this, girls? Are you like it? You know, you can tell they are. And because of that, we can continue that. Sometimes we'll get them on the track and we'll mess around with some, you know, stupid games. And
I was going to say, it was brilliant. You weren't here. So there was one day when you were doing that tug of rope with them, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
So it was you against just the two girls. And then I think you were holding them pretty easily, weren't you? And then I was
trying my best, by the way.
Yeah. Really, absolute units. I jumped over and started helping the girls, and Mark obviously started losing. And then I think who was it? Ian was in as well, jumped over. I think Kitty, and it like everyone started jumping on. It was like a 10 on 10.
Flash mob.
Yeah, it was like a flash mob,
Yeah,
tug of war, 10 on 10.
It
and
was funny.
It was brilliant. And
it was funny.
Yeah.
Like, the best thing about them two is like they're so hard. Like to use old school terminology.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, you know, I mean, Amy talks about, you know, she always says don't be soft. That's her big thing. Is like, you know, she found this girl in football and the girl was on the floor and she's like, I said, what about that? What happened there? Like, and it wasn't really a foul. She was too strong for her. And she was like, well, she's soft. She needs to get to the gym. And I'm like, she
needs to learn.
Yeah.
She needs to learn. Yeah, so,
no, that is true.
It's funny.
So this is something I wanted to talk about actually that leads on quite well. So with regards to like enjoying training, I'll send this to you, Max, actually. So with the build up to Christmas, how are you, what would you say is the best method to try and like maximize your training if you are looking to still be in that hypertrophy phase over Christmas? Because obviously we're going to be boozing, we're going to be eating.
Boozing us?
Sorry, no.
A few extra protein shakes.
Few extra
protein shakes. Got a great protein mince pie recipe. That's a lie. I don't.
You're a terrible cook.
The biggest thing, and I think this is I don't know, a bit of a turns it on its head a little bit. In the run up to Christmas, I don't necessarily think it's about training content so much. It's mindset. All about mindset in the run up to Christmas.
Mindset.
Boom, knowledge bombs. I mean, it's actually Friday. It's actually Friday. Friday message from me. It's all about mindset and run up to Christmas. It's so easy from now, like in years gone by for me, it's been like mid-October. I've been like, what, it's Christmas? And then the extra pints come in the midweek. And I say, people around.
Cake you had yesterday.
The extra cakes I had yesterday. I did have a cake yesterday.
Huge slice of cake.
You're joking, right? We shared half a slice between us.
We meant to put it away, and then we saw.
Oh, one more.
Yeah,
there's still some on the fork, so might as well make it up to a full mouthful. Anyway, it's easy this time of year, especially like from end of October, start of November, to just think of it as Christmas season and just let everything go out the window.
Yeah.
Like training can drop off, social occasions naturally will bump up, especially the fact we live and work, a lot of us, in and around the city centre. We've got a very young, sociable, active member base who, you know, and especially a lot of them are working in the corporate sphere. Yeah. It's very easy, you know, networking events, Christmas parties, catching up with friends, that sort of thing. Like even if people are still going away at the weekends, that sort of thing. From like now onwards, it's easy to just realise that between now and New Year, you just on the booze like every weekend and maybe like once, twice in the week. Yeah. It's so easy to do that. Whereas like in the last and then you get to January and realise like you're a stone heavier, you look sloppy, you feel sloppy, more important, you know, everything we've just been speaking about as far as, you know, we want exercise and diet not to be like a punishment, but, you know, to be a healthy lifelong habit that keeps you feeling fit and capable and strong. Yeah. And it's easy to get to January and not feel that. You know, you could have slogged all year and from having 8 terrible weeks just from a poor mindset, get to January and you feel unhealthy, you feel like someone that doesn't train. Yeah.
How do you think you counteract that then? So you still get the benefits of both worlds. So you can...
November is pre-season.
Okay, pre-season is November.
You set a firm line in the sand and say, you know, as of 15th of December, it's Christmas. And between now and then it's pre-season. So like flip it on its head. Training goes up a notch. Diet and nutrition in the week goes up a notch. Yeah. Granted, you're still going to have the social occasions at the weekend, I'm sure. Yeah. Granted, you're probably still going to have social, you know, things in the diary in the week. But, you know, how can you flip your mindset and think, actually, you know what? Until the 15th of December, which is this line in the sand that I've drawn, it's still pre-season.
No cake.
Like, well, there's cake. There's cake. Don't get me wrong. There's cake. And again, like, you know, let's not be unreasonable here. But, you know, if there's cake been brought in because it's November and it's kind of 'tis the season to be jolly, you know, indulge in that, but know that actually it's because you know, when you've penciled in your 4 sessions for the week, you're going hard this week. Like training is hard. Yeah. Same way as you'd expect if you play the sport and it's pre-season, you rock up. Same way as, you know, if Luke's prepping for a powerlifting comp, you see him when he's the last few heavy sessions before the comp, he's going heavy. You know, he's got headphones on, he's not talking to anyone, he's not messing around. When he's training, it's hard training.
Heavy for those half reps.
Full goo, for the half reps. 20 minutes in the sleep pod between sets. Like you know, it's hard and treat it as that. You know, if you're if the members are listening here, which I'm sure, all 7,000 of the, the members and their families are listening now. If you're turning up to a Metcon session, as much as, we talk about the social side of it, do November and December, turn up and graft more, add that extra 10%, get the extra rep. When you hear, whoever's coaching it, yourself, Kitty, Steve, say, look, there's 15 seconds left. It's balls to the wall, like it's hard training, more so than you normally would. And just dial in that mindset. And I think it just, at least it offsets the fact that I'm never going to turn around and say, it's November, you're not allowed to go out. Like, there's strictly no socializing for MSC members. If those things are going to happen, just balance it out. Make the smart choices from a nutrition perspective when you can. Make the smart choices from a training perspective. If there's a toss up between, do I get up and do that Friday 6 a.m. Metcon or not, or do I have an extra hour in bed because I was out on the pot last night? You make those decisions. Yes, you make it to the session. If you can't do the 6 o'clock, do the 7 o'clock. If you can't make it to either, come in at 5:30 and get a lifting session in. Get 15,000 steps a day instead of 12.
The steps is big, sorry,
massive. But yeah, mindset. Don't just let it all go to pot. If diet and nutrition are going to pot and you're drinking a little bit more, and your calories have gone up 10-15%, then your steps go up by 50%, and your training goes up a level. That to me for the last year or two has been spot on. Like I said, Jordan Harris will tell you, when I was living with him going back 5-6 years, 1 or 2 Christmases, we got to January and he looked at me and he was like, sort yourself out. And I turned around, I was like, I can't even argue with it.
What did he say to you now then?
He said, mate, you look great. You look fantastic. You're killing it. Have you been using full range of motion? Because you look like it.
Slow eccentric.
30% to failure. I can tell. But yeah, there was 1 or 2 years where we was just like, got to January, we just like sort it out. Because in those years, it was, from 25th of September, I was like, what, it's Christmas, we're on the beers. And in our younger years, again, especially living in the city centre, it's very easy to do it. But yeah, my mindset the last couple of years, that's been the key for me. And then coming into January, actually, even if the body weight has gone up a little bit, like physically when I'm training, physically as far as like having energy, having vigor, so to speak, like I feel great come January. And actually, it's a net effect. If you have a week or so off over Christmas, instead of coming back and feeling sluggish and heavy and slow and unfit, I feel, although I am obviously heavier a little bit, that's going to happen. I come back and I feel very well rested. I feel strong. I feel fit because I've had a week or 10 days off work. But actually, right up until probably Christmas Eve or the week before Christmas, I've had a solid 8-10 weeks of really hard, really tough training. And then you've earned that week off over Christmas, and you don't have to feel guilty then about eating and drinking whatever you want.
You just get back into it, and then a couple of pounds are going to come off straight away just by getting back to normal activity levels.
The base is still there, the strength's still there. You're not going to resent getting back in the gym and having a couple of weeks of really slow training as you try and build it back up because you're hitting the ground running.
I think nutrition-wise, just during that November, December as well, like you kind of alluded to it, but just if you have got that big staff social on the Saturday night and you go to a restaurant, you're going to treat yourself, you're going to eat a bit more or drink a bit more than usual. Just during that week, just try and rein back a little bit, just be super clean, super disciplined, hit your sessions, just so that over the course of the week that energy balance is about right, really.
It's being sustainable, isn't it? It's like being realistic and sustainable. Like I'll say that throughout the year, it's if you cut yourself out of all of the foods that you want to eat, you're going to bounce even harder at Christmas. You're going to indulge a lot more. And then, as you say, you feel sloppish in that January. And I want to touch on the sloppish.
Yeah, he said
sloppish. I like that.
Sloppish.
You were going to talk about steps, weren't you? Because that is a vital thing. I think that a lot of people would appreciate hearing about. It's just because it's a nice thing to increase, isn't it? If you are eating more, and then because people often think, well, they say they're eating more, they think, well, I'll have to do an extra session or like this, when that's often not the case, because you're going to be more fatigued and it's then going to benefit you. Not benefit you, it's going to make you feel worse in the long run because you'll be more tired, more fatigued, and that'll impact you longer because you won't be able to do more sessions. Whereas increasing that non-fatiguing kind of activity, so steps, maybe having a little swim, something that won't fatigue you too much on your body, that's going to increase overall sort of calorie activity.
That's the key, isn't it? It's free. Going, upping your steps a little bit. It's not going to cost you anything in terms of your recovery. It's not like doing a hard hit session or anything like that. It's literally just, it's low level, so there's no knock-on effect in terms of what it's going to do for the rest of your week or make the sessions any worse or anything like that. It's just a very, very cost-effective and easy way to increase your activity levels. So I think I did have something really good to say. It's kind of gone. Mine's gone blank.
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. So I remember now. I've had a lot of concussions, so sometimes the mind just goes a little bit. Just need a nudge. And Mortal Kombat brought it back. But no, we know when we're talking about like energy balance, weight loss, weight gain, and stuff like that. We know that like going to the gym is useful, but it's not everything. You know, if you go in for a weight session, you know, you're not going to be burning thousands of calories. You know, you might be burning a few hundred calories. So you are burning calories. It is activity and it is useful. But if you go to the gym twice a week or 3 times a week, you know, let's say you burn 1,000 or 1,500 calories over the course of 7 days. That's actually not a lot. That could be a
tiny fraction of the calories that you're expending.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, you could easily offset that with a couple of bad food choices. So you have to, when you're looking at like weight management, things like that, you have to look at the overall picture. It's not just like, right, okay, I'm going to go and do an extra gym session. I'm going to work really, really hard. It's about making the smart choices nutritionally throughout the week and having a balance. And yes, eating your bad foods, you know, dare I say I might have had a cookie the other day. But yeah, I know. So listen to this. I'm tense. But like, so it's not, it's not just the gym. And just increasing step count, for example, is just a very, very easy way to just keep that energy expenditure, as high as we can with no cost. A little cycle, a little, whatever it might be, some gentle activity during the week, which, people will listen to that and think like, well, go out for a half an hour walk, so what? Like, what's that going to do? And it's like, but it's accumulation of volume over time of these small habits, and those half an hour walks, doing those, 250 times a year, five times a week, just going out for half an hour, just for a walk, 40 minutes, whatever it is, 20 minutes, it doesn't matter. But over accumulation, that adds up to a lot. And it's the same with the gym, isn't it? You think like, okay, twice a week, it doesn't matter if I don't go today. But over the long haul, 2 sessions a week, 104 sessions a year, like 104 sessions in the gym, like that's a lot compared to nothing. Or, and it's the same with the step count, and it's the same with, and I would say as well, probably going a bit off course, but like, finding a little sport or a leisurely activity you enjoy, whether it be golf or you five-a-side, you play rugby, or you swimming, or whatever it is. So a guy
Paul, darts,
exactly, darts. Mortal Kombat. So a chap I've trained for the last 5 or 6 years, Mark Newton. He's in his kind of early 60s, I believe. So he trains once a week in the gym. Sometimes we do 2 if we're catching up from weeks missed or whatever. But it evens out 1 session a week, 52 sessions a year, and that the big focus there is on building his strength, making sure he's strong, he's mobile, etc. But what he does on top of that is he does 1 swim a week, and he does 1 yoga session a week. He cycles to and from the gym, and all these they're not little, but all these little things add up. If he's just coming to the gym once a week and then going home not being active at all, then he's going to struggle in terms of weight management. Yes, we can keep him strong, but he's going to struggle in terms of weight management, and you could argue overall health. But the fact that he's found his swimming, which he never did before, like he retired, so he likes doing his swimming. He goes once a week, and that that's movement. That's a bit of extra conditioning, a bit of extra resistance work, arguably as well. The yoga as well, and it's these little bits of activity, and him cycling in. He doesn't cycle in if it's absolutely slaughtering it down with rain. He'll drive in, but any chance he's got, he's cycling in. And all those times he does that is adding up. If he does that, 40 times a year, and it's a 20-minute cycle there and back, it adds up. So I think we've got to look at the big picture.
And I think that's where, we're talking about the fact that, weight training isn't necessarily, the best avenue for just expending calories. Again, it's such a small part of the week that you're not going to burn thousands and thousands of calories if you're lifting weights once or twice a week. And what it does do And I think this is where it's different to so many other types of exercises. It allows you to be robust and capable and obviously strong enough and tolerant enough to movement that, if you are in the gym once or twice a week maintaining a good strength base, it means that he is then strong enough that the cycling to and from the gym isn't overly strenuous.
Yes.
If he didn't have strength in his legs, he might turn around and say, well, I can come to the gym, but I'm not strong enough to cycle there and lift weights and cycle home.
Agreed.
It might be that, if he didn't do the weights to his upper body, he might be a little bit more unstable, a little bit more vulnerable in the shoulders, and then the swimming might not be achievable. So the real magic, I think, of weight training and strength development isn't necessarily that it burns calories and keeps the weight off you.
Exactly.
Is that it allows you to then lead that healthy and active lifestyle. Like I said, with the girls, the young girls that you coach, they can go and play football and jiu-jitsu and track and field and dance and all that kind of stuff because they're strong.
Conditioning work with them. It's just making them strong.
Exactly.
It's the same with Mark. It's like, because he's doing all that other stuff. People might look at our sessions and think, you've got him once a week, like you need to be come on, you need to be on the track, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And it's like, no, because I see him an hour a week. The only thing that matters really is making him strong, and we push the sledge at the end a lot of the time, which gets his heart rate up a little bit, don't get me wrong, but it's still focused around the strength in terms of like pushing a good amount of weight, so there's still more strength bias. But it's even more important because I've got him once a week. If I had him 5 times a week, then sure, we'll do some conditioning and stuff. But
the detail,
exactly. Well, once a week, it's like just make sure he's strong, prep him for the outside world.
You need to be ready for more combat.
Yeah, exactly. Zombie apocalypse, whatever it might be. He's ready for that. But you're absolutely right, because he's strong. The cycling is more efficient and better. He can handle it. He can handle the swimming. Because he's doing the strength work in the gym, that plays a role in terms of how much he can do in the pool. And therefore he's getting his calorie burn,
over the course of the week,
over the course of the
4
week.
activities
Anyway,
that he does.
If I beast him and he's destroyed and he can't go swimming because he's absolutely battered for 2 or 3 days, okay, I've burnt an extra 200 calories in the gym, but I've missed out on 800 calories in the swimming pool, as an example.
Yeah. And again, I couldn't agree more. So I'm sure you've seen I've got 2 of my longest standing clients are actually my own parents. I coach once, twice a week, and it's exactly the same. They're both pushing 70. They're both soon to be grandparents, not of my doing, my brother. That wasn't an announcement. That wasn't guys, I've got some news. Not from me. But they're in the gym twice a week. Again, very, very similar to Mark. Like I said, basic strength development. But that means that Dad can be on the golf course 9 days a week. Mum can go for walks with her friends. They can do everything else. And they can maintain active lifestyles.
Exactly.
Which is what we're after.
Exactly. It's great. It's been great to see their progress over the years. I love watching them train. It's brilliant. Coming in and doing the deadlifts, they're just doing good structured S&C, and it's lovely to see. Because with your older population, I think it's just so it shouldn't be, but it's unusual, isn't it? To come in and it's like my guy Mark has never touched a weight before the age of 60, but he's just reaping the rewards of it now. Same with your parents. Where does your dad play golf?
He's all over. He's
Do you reckon David have a round?
Mate, you've had one golf club sat in the corner of the office for about the last 5 years.
We have got a golf net.
I am going to
get.
I do want to get.
He's all over the place. Played a bit of Moseley. A member at Ombersley. Over that way, plays at the Lickies sometimes. Lovely course I hear.
No, it was either golf or being a hooligan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Are you leaning towards golf?
Probably.
Chelsea.
I'll go Millwall away as well. But,
probably a more sustainable. If we're talking about sustainability,
on Saturday, golf on a Sunday.
Talking about sustainability. Consistent, healthy lifestyle. I'd probably advocate the golf.
Yeah, you get a few steps
over the
hooliganism.
Serious
you get steps in for being a hooligan. Yeah.
Well,
I was walking around golf. Oh, okay. I was saying, walking to and from the ground.
Yeah, true. Standing up, sitting down. Exactly. But I'll speak to Dave. See if he go for a round. I'll get down the range a few times first.
Well, we'll have a golf net in here, so you won't need to.
Get amongst it.
So
need the range.
Well, we got to sort some other things out first. Yeah, like pool table. Mortal Kombat.
Change of rooms.
Peace yes. Right. I think that's a good place to end there anyway. So thank you for listening. We've covered a variety of topics. If you want me and Max and Mark to cover anything else, please send in some suggestions. Thank you for listening, and we will speak to you all soon.
We'll be back soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.